Good morning, everybody. Um, for those of you who celebrate Easter and are getting up and preparing to go to church, um, bless, uh, enjoy families, do everything you're going to do. For those of you who are going to be in for the day or doing other things, be blessed. Um, on today, it's Sunday motivation, Sunday morning motivation. I want to talk to you about something that has been a very powerful tool of mine since before I became an adult. I have obviously spent a lot of time refining it, developing and expanding it, and gaining a lucid enough perspicacity of it to teach it. And I want to share it with you. At its core, it's an element of faith, and I want to break it down for you, and I hope that you get something out of it. But I want to give you something to fight with. I want to give you something to work with. I want to give you something to look forward to. So I'm going to do that. Before I do that, anybody that is serious about life change and wants to take their efforts to the next level, still got one spot left for one-on-one. There may be a few more opening up, but right now I have one more spot. If you look into the description box, the post box, depending on where you're watching this at. You're going to see an email. Just email that address. Tell them you want to get started. They'll tell you what you need to do, and we'll get you on my calendar, and we'll get going. Good morning, Tavis. Good to see you. Hope everything's going great for you. Also, if you haven't pre-ordered my 21st book, I Am, which is a examination of the power of self-talk, the declarations we make with our speech and our inner conversations, not just the audible ones, but the inner conversations we have with ourselves about ourselves, and the power that lies in that, and how we need to govern that, and how we can use that to literally set the course of our lives. It is the second book in a 6-book series and on personal development. And so if you pre-order it now, you're going to get it at a discounted price. You're also going to get a free breakthrough session with yours truly. Um, I'm excited about it all the way around. Don't forget that. I think that's pretty much it. Obviously, if you haven't gotten the first book in the series, which is my 20th book, Critical Mass, you definitely want to get that as well. Okay, let's talk. One of the most common questions is why people who claim to possess a certain level of faith can't see it reflected in their lives. Why is it that people of faith, when that's said, primarily they're talking about religious people, why is it that people of faith struggle to live lives that would be indicative of the faith they claim? And how do you deal with it, and how do you correct it? Is faith real? Faith is a concept, a word, an idea that explains God's design for the universe and mankind. It explains how God designed man to interact with the universe, with the world. There's something that I've heard a few people say, from Jim Rohn to Tony Robbins. I have my own version of it, but basically, you have the capacity within yourself to place demands on the universe. And whatever you demand of the universe, whatever you demand of life, it will pay. It's just that there are some guidelines, some rules, and some counter demands. Most people that place demands on the universe aren't willing to meet the counter demands. You know, I've had people come to me saying that they want to work on their marriage. When I give them the counter demands is, yes, you can work on your marriage. Yes, if both parties are willing, you can turn this thing into an unbelievable situation. Here's the thing, though. Here's the counter demand. You have to spend more time with your spouse, less time with your friends. You have to be willing to listen and not talk, and not just talk. You need to be willing to hear as much as you want to be heard. And you passing this stuff down, and you can see the countenance on their face change because they want the marriage without the work. And that's what a lot of us think faith is. We think faith is the ability to wish something into existence without putting in work. No, faith is the dynamic that says I'm capable, I believe, because of my relationship with a higher power, I know that it's possible, and I'm going to do the work to make it happen. The moment that you make that decision, providence begins to move on your behalf. The universe begins to conspire to bring what you have demanded of it to you, but it's meeting you halfway based on what it demanded of you. But one element of faith that most people don't understand, even though it's in holy scriptures, in multiple religions, it's in, I don't know how many countless self-help books, we still miss it. And that's the ability to do two things. First of all, declare. In the book of Job, it says, you shall declare a thing and it shall be established unto you. And then you can look around and you can see in so many different ways, in so many different places, that the declaration that you're speaking is set forth. The book of Proverbs says that the power of life and death is in the tongue. And so you have this ability to speak. Another place says that God that called things that were not as though they were. The earth was created not of things that existed, but things that did not. It was called out of nothing into something. And your words have that power. Your thoughts have that power. And we don't see the connectivity. See, we are limiting ourselves. We allow ourselves by acquiescing to the ideas and suggestions of the outer environment, whether it be other people, whether it be past experiences. We allow ourselves to be pushed inside of a box that now defines us. This box is a box of limitations, limited thinking, limiting ideas, limited hope, limited expectations. And what we do is we operate, we speak, we behave based on the limitations of that box. Most people will refer to this box, if you talk to them and you didn't allow them to use the analogy of a box, they would tell you it's their comfort zone. See, the comfort zone is simply the place in which you are operating based on limitations that govern your thinking, govern your desires, govern your expectations, govern how you view and perceive your reality. And that is where most of us stay. Why? Because operating in the box produces highly predictable results. Now, here's the thing though, those predictable results don't fulfill. They don't bring joy. They don't bring happiness. Why? Because God designed you to get your fulfillment from operating at the height of your purpose. When you are not, first of all, operating in your purpose, when you are not, second of all, living at the height and the demand of your design, you can't experience fulfillment. You can get a lot of other things. There are people that have things that other people are looking at and say, man, if I could just have that, I'd be great. But you're missing the ability. See, even on the scale, even on the Hertz vibration scale or Hertz frequency scale, you'll find that desire falls below the 500 Hertz minimum that I talk about. He said, why desire? Because of the way the brain is able to discern, calculate, process information in split seconds and come up with ideas. See, you can sit up and say, man, that'd be great to have it. Oh man, I desire this, or I wish this. There's nothing wrong with having a desire, but it is something wrong with having a desire without having an idea or an intent to fulfill the desire. Because see, when you have a desire without an intent to fulfill the desire, it sends a message to your brain that that's something you want that you can't have. And every time that you put can into your mind, you close the box, you shrink the box. See, can't and the idea of can't or impossible doesn't line up with there will be nothing impossible. It doesn't line up with I can do all things. It doesn't line up with you can call things or declare things. It simply doesn't line up. So the more you entertain I can't, the more you entertain impossible, the more your world shrinks, the more limited your expectations comes. And remember, I've taught over and over again that God meets you at the level of your expectations. If you study the interactivity of man and God from any place, anytime, there's one dynamic that's always in play. God does not raise the encounter beyond the expectation. You get what you expect. It was in the book of, if I remember correct, the book of Numbers, where God speaks to Moses after the Israelites decide they're not going to cross the Jordan because there's giants on the other side. Now, 10 of the 12 spies says it's everything God said it would be, but there are giants over there. And see, God has said that we have to go over and possess it. It's ours, but we've got to go possess it. Meaning we've got to take it. You know, and that's one thing that many of us aren't really ready to do in life. The Bible says the violent take it by force. And that's something that we don't want to consider. We don't want to consider having to put some skin in the game. We don't want to consider having to actually do some work. We want everything handed to us. And when it's not handed to us, we balk. See, there's an activity that coincides with the faith or the belief. And that's where a lot of it is missing, but not all of it, but a lot of it. And so what happened is the millions of Israelites that decided that they would listen to the 10. Because see, Joshua and Caleb had said, we can take it because God said we can take it. See, there's a relationship. I remember having this relationship with my father, my adopted father, my biological great-grandfather. My whole idea of manhood came from this man. He's one of those people, your word is your bond type people. And he sit up and he would talk and tell me things and teach me things about God. But one thing that I remember about my father, if my father told me that I was going to get something, I don't care what anybody else said. I don't care what the circumstances said. I don't care how it looked. I knew I was going to get it. I didn't have to question it. I knew I was going to get it. And so here, God has said, it's yours. You can have it, but you're going to have to go take it. They balked and said no. Now, here's the interesting thing that where again, it comes and it makes the point that God meets you at the level of your expectation. He went to Moses and he told Moses, hey, man, let them know I've heard their complaints against me. And so I'm like, when I read that part, I did a little exegetical study trying to get an understanding of what he meant by the complaint, because you don't read in that chapter anywhere where they complain directly against God. Now, what they do say is we can't. Well, the pronunciation or the declaration of I can't is a direct insult to God. If God says you can and you say you can't, you are contemptuous towards God. When God says there's nothing that shall be impossible, and you say that it's impossible, you are being contemptuous to God. You are literally complaining against his demand, his command, and his declaration. And so I said, well, wow. But here's the big thing. He turns around and he tells Moses, go back and tell them that as they have spoken in my hearing, so shall I do to them. I'm going to meet them at their level of expectation. You know, and a lot of us have this idea that we can sit up and think negative, behave negative, expect negative, and God's going to come and say, no, that's my child. I'm going to love you. No, I know that's what you're expecting. And I know that I've said that you shall live by faith, but I'm going to go on and make it better for you. Doesn't work that way. God designed you to interact with the universe. Your thoughts are emitting energies that have frequency and vibration that are producing a reality as it interacts with the same matter and consciousness and energy in the universe. Your thoughts have physicality. Your expectations have physicality. You can feel the physicality of your thoughts and expectations by the way your body feels based on the thoughts. There's a thought, there's a feeling your body gets when you're happy about something. There's a feeling your body gets when you're worried and stressed about something. That's the physicality of your thoughts taking place. And your body doesn't need permission to feel it. It knows, it senses it. Your body will even get to the point where it's starting to sense something you're about to think. That's called entanglement. And it's the design of God that everything happens a certain way every time. If you do the same thing, you get the same result, no matter who does it. There is no respecter of people. Nobody has a pass in this world. Some people simply know how to act and behave and engage better than others. And some are sitting up waiting on daddy to come fix a problem that he already gave you the power to fix on your own. And you're frustrated about it. But see, you got to learn something. And what I want you to get right here is the idea of the power of your mind to create your reality. See, God designed the human mind and the human brain to not be able to distinguish between what's being imagined and what's real. See, that's how the vision becomes real. That's how the dream becomes real. That's how the expectations and the idea and the imagination can create something out of nothing, because the brain and the mind that's going to embody what's being thought, what's being suggested, what's being imagined, can't distinguish whether it's real or not. So when you are able to get yourself out of the physical world, meaning everything is stimulating your mind, it's coming from the external world, and you begin to be able to look on the inside into the internal self, and you quiet what's around you. Like when I'm doing my prayer and meditation in the morning, and people say, what's the difference between prayer and meditation? Some people think, well, prayer is about being, religious, and meditation is some esoteric spiritual stuff. No, to me, the way that I define it, whether I'm talking to religious people, whether I'm talking to non-religious people, prayer and meditation are both parts of the communication between man and the divine. Prayer is you talking. Meditation is you listening. See, think about the dynamics of prayer from a traditional and conventional sense. Anybody that's been in a religious environment and grew up praying, what does prayer entail? What does prayer entail? You getting on your knees, or you standing up, or you being in a closed environment and you talking to God. That's a one-sided conversation. That's you. How many people are actually talking to God and then being quiet? Very few, very, very, very few. Most people, you get in there, and no matter how long you pray, a minute to an hour, it's all you talking, saying all that's on your mind, all you need, all you want, all you're thankful for, whatever your prayer entails. When are you listening? See, what we learned is literally learned from a scientific perspective that the mind of God is most accessed when you're quiet and you're shutting out the sensory details of the world around you. You're not seeing things, you're not hearing things, you're not smelling things. And because there's in situations where there are a lot of ambient noises, you can singularly eliminate all but one. You can get music, put them in your headset, put your headset on, get some real laid back music. And within the first minute of really relaxing, the music goes to the background. And now you have direct access to the mind of God, the consciousness of this world, the one that knows the answers to every problem you will ever face, the one that has all of the solutions to the enigmatic issues that you're facing or will face. There's never a situation that does not have an answer, but you've got to be open and listen. But that is what's so beautiful about it. You got prayer and meditation. I'm talking and I'm listening. I'm hearing in ways unimaginable. But see, when you're practicing that, when you're rehearsing your future so that you are building a foundation, guess what happens? The more you're able to really sink in and rehearse your future, your thoughts are becoming clear. And you move from a state of audible expression within yourself, and you start to get into more imagery. That's why we talk about visions and dreams. Visions and dreams have nothing to do with fantasies and hope and wish lists. It's when you go from the audible conversation within yourself, the internal conversation you're having with yourself, to being able to envision and see. And images are much stronger than words. It's the way we first learn to communicate before we can speak. It's imagery, and you're seeing it. And the more you see it, and the more you live in it, meaning that you're actively engaged in it, guess what happens? The brain says, wow, look at us. Man, we're this. And it happens with your talk too. You can have self-talk that says it and makes the suggestion, but you have to get to a point where I found the best results is when I suggest it verbally, but I see it visually. And so my verbal command or my verbal suggestion or my verbal engagement creates a mental image that I can impress upon my mind, and my mind sees me doing it, and my mind says, we've done it. Guess what happens when you come up to something and it's time to do it? If you've never done it before, there's a level of anxiety. But if you've done it before and you've done it successfully, no anxiety, you just do it. Before I engage anything, every speech, every message, every encounter, every business deal, every business endeavor, everything I've ever done, I lived it before I did it in my mind. And I live it a lot. What parents would have said if I was younger, I'm daydreaming. I got my mind in the clouds. But what I'm doing is I'm training myself, rehearsing what I'm going to do in a way that tells my mind that I've already done it. I'll give you a prime example of it in a scientific environment. There was a scientific study done with, I want to say 100 basketball players. They took 50, they put them in the gym, they had to shoot, I forgot how many thousand free throws a day. They took the other 50 and they wouldn't even allow them to touch a basketball. Their entire exercise for the length of this study was to shoot free throws perfectly in their mind. They taught them how to image it in their mind. They taught them how to visualize it in their mind. Visualization is so powerful. They taught them how to visualize it in their mind. They taught them how to see themselves shooting the perfect free throw and it going in swish every single time. And they did that in their mind over and over and over again each day. When it was time to measure it, the people who never practiced it physically but did it mentally outperformed those who practiced it physically. That says that the mind is more powerful than the body, that the mind can establish a reality that the body has to adhere to. In other words, it wasn't the practicing of the mechanics, it was the seeing of the mechanics being executed perfectly that created the environment where the body just fell in line. That's where we're missing a big part of overcoming, rising, and living. We don't see it. We've been taught, show me. And the best way to show me is for me to see it and put it here. I don't need anybody else to prove it to me out here, because there are some things that I want to accomplish that no one's done yet. So who am I going to look to say, show me, if I'm trying to do something new? And when I think about it, and and I'm using a lot of biblical references here because, hey, this is a day that a lot of people who are going to watch this are going to be really off into that type of that level of thinking. And there's just so much you can take from scripture. There's a part, and I believe this is in Isaiah, he says, I'm going to do a new thing. Do you not know it? It shall be established. I'm going to do a new thing. I'm going to do a new thing. But most people don't understand that the new thing means it hasn't been done yet. You can't find evidence of the new thing outside of yourself. You got to be able to look inside of yourself and see the new thing. The new thing is greater than the old thing. The new thing is more powerful than the old thing. The new thing is more elevating than the old thing. The new thing is an expansion of the old thing. The new thing is what you cannot find outside because it's new. You got to stop allowing your brain to be, naturally and by nature and default, your brain is a record keeper of the past. But that's not where it's most powerful. But see, if you allow it to operate in default, it's going to constantly examine and reevaluate past experiences to determine future outcomes. And when you allow your brain to continue to function as the record keeper, it's going to always produce limited results based on past experiences. It's when you're able to come into your mind outside of the external influences and get inside of your mind and start to see the new thing. It's when you're able to sit up and say, I am ready for the new thing. I'm going to create the new thing. I'm going to call the new thing as if it was, although it does not yet exist. I'm going to create things from things that don't exist versus things that exist. I am going to come up with something new. I'm going to see it. Visions. I'm going to see it. Visions and dreams. I'm going to see it so clearly that my mind believes it's already happened. A new thing. When you do that, you take your mind and your brain from being a record keeper of the past, setting the course of your future based on past experiences, and it now becomes a map for a new future. Because I'm developed, every time I entertain and my imagination opens up and sees something that I haven't accomplished yet, maybe that no one else has accomplished yet, and I start to map it out in vision, I'm creating new neural pathways in my brain. And every time I do that, I raise my frequencies. Why? Because the highest form of vibration and energy is enlightenment. It's when you engage the mind of God and you receive things you haven't seen before, haven't heard before, haven't experienced before, and you take them in as reality and promises of God, and you are now seeing them. You're at the highest, you're 700 hertz or higher now. That's higher than love. That's higher than happiness. That's higher than joy. I'm literally learning how to be a better me by engaging the designer. Who better to learn how to be your best self from than the one that designed you? Not talking esoteric. I'm not talking religiously. I'm talking about direct engagement. I'm talking about a relationship. I'm talking about understanding and trust that the way it's set up to work, it will work, and there's nothing nobody else can do to stop it. I'm starting to live in my future self in the current. I'm not denying my past. I'm just not succumbing to it. I'm not willing to mortgage my future to pay for my past. I am looking and saying my mind is no longer going to be an archive of my past endeavors. It's going to be a new roadmap to my future exploitations. I am going to do great things. That's another Bible thing. It says you should do great exploits. God made this thing easy. We made it complicated. God made this so easy. It says, guard your hearts and minds. Guard your hearts. And outside of being told to know the word in the Bible, the second most frequent command is about protecting and guarding and infilling your mind, your heart and your mind. And if you want to break that down into today's scientific vernacular, your conscious and your subconscious. Your conscious is the mind, your subconscious is the heart, or in the Greek, cardia. And you've got to have an understanding of the power of your mind to do exceptional and extraordinary things. What you are doing in this world is a direct response to how you are engaging the challenges before you. Yes, there are people around you that have wronged you. There are people around you that have done things that you are not happy with. There are situations you grew up with that were out of your control. We can go on and on and on, but at the end of the day, your life is going to be about whether you came, you saw, you conquered. It's going to be about whether you were able to find yourself in the darkness, whether you were able to see beyond the pain and the hurt, to discover the power within yourself. At some point, it's going to stop being about who did what to you and about what you're going to do about being what you're designed to be in this world. Are you going to leave a legacy that speaks of you long after you're gone, or will they sit up and say they whined and they complained and they pointed fingers of blame and they never lived to the fullness of their potential? I'm gonna leave it there. But God designs you for greatness. There's nothing mediocre in the intent of your design, nothing average in the intent of your design. Don't allow external influences to mar the massive productivity and potential of your design. Because you were meant to do great things. You were meant to be extraordinary. You were meant to be phenomenal. If you believe in a higher power, you have to ask yourself, if you are a representation of the higher power, meaning that when people see you, they get a reflection of what that higher power is, what that higher power has the capacity to do, and how that higher power operates. How can you possibly be a good representation if you're living a mediocre life? And why would the higher power design you to do so? That's because the higher power never designed you to be average, never designed you to be mediocre, never designed you to just sit back and settle. Get in the game. Start to look inside of yourself. Stop looking for approbation and validation for people outside of yourself. Start looking inside of yourself to discover the beauty of your design, the beauty of your personage, the power of your mind. Then walk it out. Walk it out. There are going to be some bumps and some bruises. There are going to be some setbacks. There are going to be some delays. There'll be some disappointments and frustrations along the way, but you can't be stopped. The very definition and nature of the word destiny says you're destined to do it. The only person that can shut your destiny down is you. I'm challenging you to get out there. Again, I'm about to get off here, as I always say, I'm going to live my life on full. When I leave this place, I'm on a down E. I am going to have done everything that I could possibly do to make my imprint on this world, to make it a little bit better, to give a little bit more hope, to give a little bit more understanding of what the power is inside of each and every one of us. I'm going to touch lives until I stop breathing, and I'm going to let it speak for itself. I'm challenging you to do the same thing. Now, don't forget, if you haven't placed your I am pre-order, do that now. Haven't gotten critical math, do that now. Also, if you want to be in a situation where you're working one-on-one with me every week, email lifechange@rickwallacephd.link. That email is in the description box. Email it. Somebody's going to get back to you to explain how you can work with me, what that entails, what's available. Anything from 12 weeks up to 52 weeks is what we have available now. So we can get something done. I'm looking to work with a bunch of people over the course of this year. My goal before the year started was to work with a minimum of 1 million people. Obviously, I can't do that in a one-on-one basis. So that makes the one-on-one encounters premium, because it's only a part of what I do, but it's the most intimate and engaged. It's me sitting up looking at who you are and seeing the depth of who you are and being able to peel back the layers and uncover that beauty inside of you that God planted, that's unbelievably powerful, unbelievably forceful and impactful, and set it where you can see it and become acquainted to it, and then set you free to go do these awesome things that you were designed to do in the first place. But whatever you do, let's make something happen. Do your best to be your best every single day. I love you guys. I'm out of here. I'm going to be trying to spend time with family. I'm going to be trying to do some things today, but I'm going to try to drop something else on you. I'm really excited. Like I said, my goal is 1 million. I want to change the lives of 1 million people this year. I didn't set a money goal in the primary vector of how I look at things. I have money goals because I'm always looking to what I need to do all these things. But my goal was, if I touch 1 million lives, the money will take care of itself. And that's my goal. I want to touch and change 1 million lives this year. I'm off to a pretty good start too. I've been connecting with everybody that'll connect with me and let me touch their people. You know, I mean, I'm offering myself in so many different ways. And, you know, I've been asked, am I going to be able to physically do this, and I'm working on my health to make sure that as I go on, I actually get stronger. So I'm working on all of these elements, and I'm going to bring some health elements in as I work to get myself healthy, as I work to do things. And I mean, learn to love. Learn to love. First of all, learn to love yourself, because when you learn to love yourself, there's never a point in time where you feel unloved. And here's the power of feeling loved. Anytime that we actually enter into a state where we feel loved, we release a chemical. There are over 1,300 chemicals that the body can produce. And one of them is oxytocin. And when you produce oxytocin, it has a subsequent or secondary impact. Oxytocin produces what is known as nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is huge because nitric oxide is what produces a relaxing effect that is very healthy for the arteries. It gives more plasticity to the arteries. It opens the arteries up wider. And guess what happens when that happens? First benefit, lowered blood pressure. I had major, if anybody knows me, I had major issues with my blood pressure a couple of years ago. I was hospitalized in ICU. I literally passed out in Starbucks and went into a seizure. When they got me into the hospital, check this out. Anybody that knows blood pressure is going to be like the same way the doctors were 254 over 189. They're going, why aren't you dead? Then they did studies, all kind of tested studies, and it hadn't just started. It had been that way for a while. It was a combination of me being stressed about a lot of things. It was a combination of me not eating properly, not exercising properly, things that I had actually built my life on. My first company was Stay Fit Fitness and Training. One of my current companies is Master Fitness 21. I'm literally I wake up, I'm being rolled into the ER. My shoulders are on fire, and I don't know why. I'm bleeding profusely through my mouth. And all I can sit up and say is, why am I in the emergency room? Why are my shoulders hurting so bad? I just kept repeating that. They told me, sir, you had a seizure at Starbucks, and we brought you in. Your seizure was so intense that it pulled both of your shoulders out of socket. Both of your shoulders are completely dislocated. We're going to have to put those back in. Anybody ever had shoulders that were dislocated, relocated, know what I'm talking about. I don't even have to say anything else. Then they did an x-ray and found out that when I fell, I broke the upper part of my humerus. So that was that pain. So why am I bleeding so profusely out of my mouth? I had bit through my tongue completely from top to bottom. It was literally whole from the top of my tongue to the bottom, like 4 or 5 of them. And I'm going, okay, and they're going like, first of all, we don't know how you survived. We don't know how you don't have renal failure or kidney failure because of the high blood pressure or whatever. And it was no signs. So my thing is, I don't want to be on medicine. So I had to be on it for a while because it was so high, we had to get it down. But they told me because it had been up so long and my body had completely adjusted to it somehow and was literally functioning outside of my brain, because it was my brain that finally said, I can't take anymore. And they said, outside of that, we can't find any other signs of it, any damage. And so your body's adapting to it. And they told me the chances of you ever having a normal blood pressure are probably unlikely, no matter what you do to it, because of your body's just used to it. It's created this new bar or what benchmark or whatever. But I got on it for a while, but then I started thinking. And what I found is, as I lose weight, obviously, my blood pressure drops. As I change my diet, my blood pressure drops. But guess what drops my blood pressure the most? When I meditate in the morning and I engage myself and at the height of how much I love me. And I'm not talking about from an arrogant standpoint. I'm talking about from a place that's making me want to be better. Physically, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually, a love that demands more of me, a love that sees the value in me, not just to myself, but to my family and the world. And it's the most impactful. But why? Because the presence of nitric oxide or the lack of it is one of the most powerful influences to lowering or the raising of blood pressure. And feeling loved is one of the most powerful forces and ways of creating it. There are certain exercises you can do. There are certain foods like arugula is by far the best, not the most tasty. One of the quickest acting is beets. My wife can't stand beets. I love them. And so I'm always drinking beet juice, and I get literally organic beets, and I'll also get the powder, and I mix them. I get organic arugula, and I mix it. And like I said, arugula isn't the best tasting, but the benefits as far as nitric oxide are great. And what you find is the more and more you take it, there are actually exercise that's called a nitric oxide dump, meaning that it's like a 4-minute exercise. You do it, and it literally dumps nitric oxide in the body. Do it 2 or 3 times a day, and unbelievable. There's all these different ways, but all that to say, look, we've got to be better. But find the way to love you, and be totally blown away by what you can achieve. With that being said, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable Sunday, and we'll talk soon.